Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today I am here with Ryan Carlisle, and I'm excited because she is a former professional athlete, as a rugby player, and now she is a firefighter in California. And she also has become a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. So she kind of combines a lot of different worlds and has so many different stories that I'm excited to share today. So Ryan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat about all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, so I played rugby for 10 years on the national team. I played softball in college prior to that, and then found rugby after college, which was pretty cool. It was kind of like reigniting my athletic career because you go through the college athlete phase and then it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then I was like, wait, I can still do something. So that was great. And then I went to the 2016 Olympics, 2 World Cups. And after that, I stopped playing in 2018. Kind of unexpectedly, it was more of a coach's decision than my decision. So it was like, oh my gosh, now what? Now is like, oh my God, now I need a job. Yeah. And I tried tons of different things. I hated everything that included offices and outfits and 9-to-5s. So I found EMT, paramedic firefighting, and so far it's been an amazing choice for myself. I get to work out on work. I still am in that team environment. I get to put on a cool uniform, ride in a big red engine, and do a lot of cool things. So it's been a great transition for me. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. And becoming a firefighter, had access to be in like the We Fit program, which is our wellness and fitness program for my department. So I'm still able to do a lot of personal training now with my peers. And that's kind of what led me to pregnancy and postpartum certification, because talk about an underserviced, under-researched population is female firefighters and pregnant female firefighters. So I'm now a resource for females in my department, as well as outside the department in the CrossFit space. I've been doing CrossFit for about 8 years. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, real quick.
I love it. Well, I want to back up and talk about a million things here. So how did you go from softball into I'm going to play rugby, then professional rugby, and then go to the Olympics? That is such a crazy transition when you didn't grow up playing rugby or play in college. And then suddenly, maybe not suddenly, but you able to merge into the professional level. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was, of course, there was a lot of I was in the right place at the right time situation. Yeah. Rugby was just added to the Olympics at that time. So there was a lot of attention being brought to the sport to kind of grow it really fast, so that we had a national team to represent the nation in the Olympics. I did study abroad in Australia when I was in college, where we all know they play rugby of all different shapes and sizes and forms. And so I discovered it for the first time there. And when I came back, I went to school in South Carolina. I was looking for a team to play on, and my school had a club team that was already established. It was obviously more of a social thing than a competitive thing, but that was my first step into the sport. And there were a lot of great athletes and coaches playing that were like, hey, you should go here to play and you should go there to play. And I kind of just kept finding those competitive outlets. Rugby is one of those really cool sports in America that you can be super competitive or super social with it. So I just seeked the competitive pathways and landed on the national team.
I love it. That's so
not funny. Because I was good at rugby. I will be very honest about that. But I just had a lot of uncoachable characteristics from just being an athlete in general that made it easier for me to learn the sport faster. So I learned the sport over 10 years. And in those first 5, it was a grind and a hustle, but it was worth all the sacrifice because I made it to my goal.
Well, that's so cool. And it really seems like, I mean, so many things that we talk about of as far as like supporting female athletes, but rugby being a newer sport in the US and you kind of being a huge part of that growth and evolution. And that's like very recent history.
Yeah, it was super exciting. They kept calling like that generation like the pioneers of the sport. So it was cool to be a part of that sort of movement. And it's been so amazing to watch the growth of the sport because I'm a coach now and I'm coaching like little 6, 7, 8-year-old girls playing rugby. And every time I show up to practice, I'm like, this is so cool.
It's so cool. I love hearing
Yeah.
it. And isn't it crazy how like our coaching can take us in so many different directions from like fire to CrossFit to pregnancy to like little girls. But I mean, it's so impactful. And when you get to like use your coaching in a really versatile way.
Yeah. And I think in the end, coaching is about human interaction and human connection and just understanding the sport, the movement, the patterns, and most often the person, and just applying it all together. So I think that was one of the really cool things about the P&PA was I wish I had it like 6 or 7 years ago, not because I needed the pregnancy and postpartum like physical aspects, but it's like the mindset behind the program.
Yeah.
Like just because I can train 6, 8, 10 hours a day, I don't need to anymore.
I know. And it's so hard to turn that brain off when you've been a collegiate athlete, when you've gone on to be a professional athlete. That's just embedded in your DNA. Like it is so hard to step outside of what was normal for that, I guess, like season of life and not make that like your whole personality for the rest of your life. I still struggle with
Right.
that.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first day I woke up not having to go to practice. I like woke up, I put my clothes on as if I was going to training, and then I was like, well, why am I awake? But then I was like, all right, well, let's go to the gym. And then came home, had lunch, and I was like, all right, well, I normally do a second session right now, so let's go do that. And it was just like, I was just like, this is just how I operate. But I didn't have like the why. So
Mm-hmm.
it's every time I needed to push hard, instead of being like, oh, why are you doing this? For an Olympic gold medal, for money, for victory, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't actually know, but I'm able to. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
Right. And then were you doing CrossFit like when you finished rugby, or was that like part of your rugby training was also CrossFitty or no?
No, I mean, you train kind of like a sprinter and like a power athlete, but it was mostly like short movements in the gym, wasn't ever like full clean and jerk snatches or long durations. Our games are only 7-minute halves. So we kind of trained in that very fast, intense interval style. But I loved weightlifting. And right after rugby, I joined a CrossFit gym because of the weightlifting program. So I competed in weightlifting, trying to do that nationally, not internationally, but just like at a high level nationally. And then every now and then would like dabble in a CrossFit class just because it looked fun. And then I just learned, oh, that's a really great style of training for me. It's only an hour. I only have to go once a day. That makes sense to me right now. I should do that.
Man, you are a great athlete. The fact that you played softball, rugby, Olympic lifting, CrossFit, then obviously like being a tactical athlete with firefighting, it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know, you're kind of a big deal.
I don't even feel that way. It's just like, oh, that looks fun. Let me try it.
Yeah.
Why
Well, and
not?
like that's like a spirit that it just doesn't really go away. It just takes different shapes through the years and through different seasons. And I think, in the coach course, we talk so much about just like being able to like leverage that athlete brain and like let it serve you for what you need it to. Like maybe it's not for a gold medal anymore, or maybe it's not for, participating on that professional level of a team, but now it's to complement your work, or now it's to like really help, your body just stay strong as, you get older and there's just different demands.
Which was a huge reason why I felt like I needed to become a first responder because I felt so strong and capable physically that sitting behind a computer, I felt like I was wasting this like talent I had, or I didn't feel like I was fulfilling this potential I had
Mm-hmm.
But all of these like resources we get provided through Team USA is like, oh, come work for this company and use your sports minded blah, blah, blah to be successful in this sales position. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. That sounds good. And then I was like, no, this is terrible. I want to pick something up and move it. So then now I just feel like I don't know, it's almost like a calling. Like I'm capable of doing this job, so I should do it, sort
Yeah.
of thing. Like, and I had so much fun in the academy. It was almost like professional training again. And now on the job, like I'm doing pretty hard things along with like men and women doing the same thing. And I don't know, it's just fun. I feel successful in it and I feel useful in it. And I'm not like thinking, oh, what more can I do? Like, no, I'm kind of maxed out right now.
Absolutely. I think like anybody who feels called to be a first responder and tactical athlete, like there's such a heart for it, but also like that physicality. Like you have to go in and be strong, be ready, be fit, and have honestly just like that certain mindset that is very hard to teach. It is part of who you are.
Yeah, and they say the most successful people that graduate academies or like military come from the military or sports,
Right.
not because of the physical or the physical demands, but our mentality of like mission focused, teamwork minded, like let's all work together to do this thing. And it was really cool to see that mindset that I've really only seen expressed in sports, expressed like at work. And it's like, wow, this is super similar. It's
Yeah.
like, this is really cool.
Oh, it's so awesome to see. And have you seen a huge uptick in the time that you've been there of a lot of female firefighters? Like, what is that like for you? Obviously, it's, a male dominated career, but we've seen a lot of growth in progress as far as getting more women involved. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think the recruiting for women has increased tremendously. And I think at least when I first noticed it, most of the women coming into the fire service are older.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because we spend a lot of our potential in sports, which leads us into your 30s, and then you're like, oh, what am I going to do with all this? Everything I've trained my whole life for, this makes sense. But now we're seeing a lot more introduction to the fire service at a much younger age. Like my department, as well as other local departments, put on what's called a girls' empowerment camp. And it's for teenagers just to show them, like, this is an option for you as well.
Right.
I remember when I was in high school, like if you were smart or if you were a female and you had good grades, no one considered you to go to the military or to be a police officer or firefighter. It was
Right.
like, why would you want to do that? You're so smart. And it's like, that has nothing to do with this. Like
Right.
I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about service. I'm capable. And that should be all it takes to get into a field like this.
Absolutely.
So I think it's like really shifted. And now it's like, you're a woman, I'm a woman, we can do this. We
Right.
just have to work a little bit harder, come a little bit sooner, and train a little bit differently to be appropriately prepared for what's to come. But you are capable of doing it. So the other thing that's really cool is there's more people applying and getting into academies. And even if they're not successful the first time, they're coming back again and being successful. So it might take one or two tries, but it's definitely doable. It's been really cool to see. I had 3 women in my academy. There were like 6 in the academy after me. So yeah, it's growing substantially.
That is so awesome to hear. And what do you feel are like some of the biggest barriers or challenges for female firefighters?
Definitely upper body strength. A lot of what we do is carrying and lifting things overhead. Just the equipment in general it's heavy.
Yeah.
What we wear is hot, and we as women tend to get hotter faster. So it's really uncomfortable to just be overheated and have to do heavy work. And you just have to train in that sort of space. And no part of my rugby career included wearing hundreds of pounds of gear and feeling like over 100 degrees hot. Like you just can't prepare for that. So I think it's just the familiarity of the equipment, of with tools. It's just a lot of things we don't grow up like learning.
Yeah.
I mean, very few women are out there like mowing the lawns with their dad, learning about small motors.
Right.
Whereas the first time I touched a chainsaw was in the fire academy. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just like the exposure to that sort of stuff. But like I said, we're introducing it a lot sooner. So hopefully we are less intimidated by it and we do become more equal in the knowledge around that sort of equipment. But yeah, the biggest thing is the strength foundation, because we tend to be just as fit, but not as strong.
Right. Right. And, I think we've also seen, at least in my experience working within like the police department or different fire departments and with some of our military, is when a woman gets pregnant and then she has to do like more admin kind of work. And then that's really hard to either take a step back, whether because you're forced to, or, it's like the department policy. And then the barriers or struggles with coming back, whether it is to fit into a uniform or a PT test and just different aspects of that. So can you share a little bit about your experience, both through the lens of being like a female firefighter, but also like through your coaching and what you've seen with different people you've worked with?
Yeah. So on the side, I also help write programs specifically for women who want to be successful in an academy, both for military PFTs, police, and fire. I did test for police and fire, so I'm familiar with those very introductory physical tests. And I saw what was required and what people were doing to prepare. And I was like, oh, no, don't do that. You can't just show up to a CrossFit class and expect to be successful in this space.
Right.
And then a lot of the women I've worked with are in the back of their mind, second guessing, even starting the journey, knowing, well, wait, I want to have kids. Maybe I shouldn't do this at all because this doesn't make sense. So before they even start, they're already like, wait, I know I want to be a mother at some point. And am I going to have to go through a whole nother career transition just for that?
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes you do, because they don't make it easy to be pregnant or postpartum in this field. I know very few fire departments that even have a maternity or family leave policy. We're just stuck with the unpaid 8 weeks,
Right.
which 8 weeks, as we know, is just not enough. And you just can't
Especially for like a physically demanding job. Like that's always the crazy part for me. It's like not going and sitting at a computer where it's like a fairly sedentary thing. Like, no, you were like loaded, having to carry, having to go from sit to stand to run to sprint to maybe controlling somebody in law enforcement, or like, I mean, just so many different variables.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, just stepping into the engine, even if it's not for a fire, just even if I'm going grocery shopping with my crew, stepping up into the engine is like a 36-inch step.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a woman I work with now who basically said, I've peed my pants every time I've stepped into the engine for the past like 12 weeks. Like, that's not okay. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's right. But we don't have anything in place to help her.
Right. And there's also probably an element of like, I mean, maybe this is an assumption, but of being embarrassed because you're around a lot of men. You don't want to be like, you already kind of have a target on you because you're a female. So you don't want to be seen as like weaker or like less capable, or like basically have anything wrong with you and bring more attention to something. Yeah.
Dramatic and emotional. Like, no, not this. This isn't right. And the other thing, like I said before, I became a firefighter because I hate working in an office. So what makes you think that the reasonable accommodation is to put me in an office? That's completely opposite of the personality it takes to be a firefighter or a police officer or an operator of some sort. Like, we don't want to be doing administrative things. We're not good at that. We don't thrive in that area. And unfortunately, that's the only other option, because you're right. Like, my gear won't fit. It's unsafe for me to be wearing gear that doesn't fit me. it's unsafe for in any like first, second trimester to be overheated like that. So it's not even just protecting me, but now the future of my baby.
Right.
So that and um the recovery process, like I said, we're giving 8 weeks unpaid, but you're right. I'm not trying to get back to sitting at a computer. I'm trying to get back to throwing ladders, carrying hose, climbing ladders, jumping up into engines, wearing heavy gear.
Right.
And there's no program for that. Insurance isn't covering PT for that. We don't have a leave policy
Right.
covering any
And
time
I,
off to prepare for that.
yeah, and then it feels like, at least in the situations I've been tapped into, it's a lot of women then become discouraged to return to work, and they don't, like, they won't go back to law enforcement. They won't go back into firefighting because they're like, like, I don't feel ready physically, mentally, emotionally, and like the stress of the job or the expectations are too high. So then it's like the barrier to reentry is really hard. And then those who do go back feel like they're kind of constantly struggling to try to catch up, or at least even have a baseline again, because they are expected to do too much too soon, but then also need to get paid and also want to like be part of things again.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and probably most of the pressure we put on is on ourselves, but it's being driven from the lack of policies and protection that is being provided to us. So the other thing is just getting time off ahead of the pregnancy. Like, you're probably familiar with firefighters and police officers. We can just kind of like trade shifts.
Right.
So if a male finds out his wife's pregnant, he now has 9 months to prepare for that. Whereas the female finds out she's pregnant, we don't, this is it. I'm here, I'm pregnant, and now I need a solution. I don't have time to work these extra shifts to save time later down the road.
Right.
Every day on the job is potentially detrimental to me and my pregnancy. So, but then if I go work in an office, it's detrimental to my mental health. So
Right.
it's
And is
just
that the
this.
policy, like when you announce your pregnancy, that you're put on like admin essentially?
I mean, legally, they're not allowed to force you to do anything you don't want to do. If I want to work as a firefighter up until the day I give birth, fine. But like I said before, as a firefighter, if I can't put my turnouts on and zip up my pants, I'm not allowed. That's regardless.
Right.
That's me tomorrow. If I go to work and my turnouts don't fit or there's something ripped on it, I'm not allowed inside of a burning building. That's just safety.
Right.
So there is the point where you get to that physical, like, okay, now what? Is the department going to buy me maternity turnouts that don't exist? No.
Right. Oh gosh, it's just so interesting to hear, almost like the behind the scenes. And I kind of like oftentimes hear the stories on the back end where it's like, I've had my baby, I need to get in shape like really fast, but I'm also having these issues. And I think when you are in any kind of tactical career, you are a professional athlete for that career.
Right.
Like my husband said that he found there was like, they called it an occupational athlete, is now like being one of the terms that are used.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because I think when you're expected to work and perform in a way that your job depends on your physicality and your strength and your readiness, mental readiness, physical readiness, in a lot of ways, after having a baby, you're kind of injured, but you don't want to be treated as injured. And it's just like a
Right.
really fine line to walk.
Exactly. And I like that you said tactical. What'd you say? Operational
Yeah.
athlete?
Yeah. He told me there's a new word, because I've always called it like a tactical athlete, like fire, police, military, EMS. And he saw it worded the other day as an occupational athlete. And I was like,
Yeah, I like that. I personally don't like, as a firefighter, being called an athlete, probably because I was an athlete and my whole entire life revolved around my performance. So I was a professional sleeper, I was a professional eater, I was a professional recoverer. I had doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists at my liberty for any niggle so that I could perform. Whereas now as a firefighter, like, there are shifts that we don't sleep.
yeah.
There are shifts that we miss our meals. It's definitely, they are not preparing you to be your best self on a call. You're just showing up with what you have. Like, And that could be no sleep the night before. We could run 15 calls and now I'm exhausted and I have to help someone. So yes, physically, sometimes we do a lot of the same things as an athlete, but we unfortunately don't get to train, eat, and recover like one. So that's why
You're
I
like
kind of
an
like the
athlete running on
operational.
empty.
Yeah, yes.
Very worn down
Just
athlete.
a burnt out, professional burnt out athlete.
Right? Oh man. But I mean, this the requirements of your job, it is a lot. And so how are you helping different firefighters who, whether it's pregnancy, postpartum, or kind of anything for female athletes? What are female firefighters? What does your work look like in supporting them as a coach?
Yeah, so my department has so many great resources, and there's teams that I chose to be a part of. One of them is the peer support team. So I'm basically making myself available to anyone who needs help with any mental health issue, emotional issue. They just want to chat, they want to vent, and they want to do it to someone who knows what they're kind of going through. So I've made myself available that way. Like I said before, I'm part of my department's wellness and fitness program, and by becoming the P&PA coach, I'm now available to help women in the department for that. I also just recently started working with O2X, maybe you've heard of. And so I'm an instructor with their programming, and they are nationally with the military, police, fire, all first responders, teaching us how to eat, work out, and recover so that we can be our optimal human self. Because in the end, we're daughters, sons, wives, husbands, brothers first. And we are not good at anything we do outside of that if we can't be our best self off the job. So that's a really cool thing I've started. I went to an all women's workshop. It was all female firefighters, and we just got to talk girl stuff, but girl stuff in the fire service. And I think if we can get more of that going, we can empower this movement so that more of us are encouraged and feel confident to get pregnant, to have babies, and come back to work and spread the news like, hey, we could do it.
Right.
And if more of us do it, maybe we can get paid to have that time off, and maybe we can have these resources available to us. But if we quickly go, all right, I'm out, I'm going to go have a baby, start my family, this was fun.
Right.
Well, then it's like a dead end. Like, dang,
Yeah.
she was a really good firefighter and she could still be a really good firefighter. And it sucks that she has to make this choice. So,
And it seems like the ones that have the most success and happiness in their career are the ones that are most supported by their different departments and different cities and what they do to, like really encourage women to come back after, because we know that that is where there's a drop off in female first responders is when they become mothers for maybe a variety of reasons. But if we can lower that barrier of reentry and have more support, then it can, I would assume, that it would be a really fulfilling career to have as a mother. You have this job, but then you also have a schedule that maybe accommodates for mom life in some ways. Other ways, no, but it's non-traditional work that can be really fulfilling.
That, and who wouldn't want their son or daughter like empowered by a strong female presence? Like, I know being a stay-at-home mom is an amazingly hard journey, but like, how cool would it be for them to see like, oh, my mom's a firefighter. Like, it's not just the men doing the things.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't
like
know. I just think it's a
normalizing
cool image.
Yeah, I think, this generation of millennial-ish women has done a really great job of showing that you can be a mother and you can do this, and showing just kind of normalizing careers and sports and participation and just like how we spend our time and interests in a way that maybe we didn't see growing up, but it's going to be different for this next generation where this has been modeled for them in a variety of ways.
Right. I think just making it more normal.
Yeah.
Just to see people doing it, because then we wouldn't have such this fear mentality around, or you shouldn't be doing that. Why? Because no one's done it like that before you. Well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, you seem like you're an incredible mentor and resource to so many different female firefighters, and honestly, just athletes that are transitioning out of athleticism as their life as an athlete into, a whole different career, and finding that way to, I don't know, just kind of pioneer both. Like, you got involved with rugby at a really awesome time, and your work as a female firefighter, like in a lot of ways, we're still in the generation of pioneering that, I think.
Yeah. I'm just want more people, more women to know, like, you could do it.
Yeah.
You might need a little help. I'm here to help. You have a ton of people around you willing to help. You just have to find those resources and, surround yourself with the people that are encouraging you to chase these hard goals, not the ones that are like, well, there's other things you could do. Like we don't need that.
Which I'm sure women are told quite often as it relates to that career. Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Sure you want to do this? I know, definitely in law enforcement. Are you sure you'd want to?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It's everywhere. My wife's a 3-time Olympic BMX racer, and after before Tokyo, just based on her age, she was told like, well, maybe it's time for you to like move on and have a family, start a family. It's like, wait a second. Why can't she move on, start a family, and still compete? We can still do that.
I know we have so much work to do with like turning all of that messaging, upside down. And I think fortunately we are seeing more and more people say like you can be an athlete and a mother. It doesn't end when, motherhood begins. But we do need more and more people out there that, feel called to keep pursuing it however they can. And that just looks different for everybody.
I know. And I think it's super cool to see the women's national soccer team. Like so many of them have children. They came back. They're super competitive, super amazing athletes after having multiple kids. Their kids are in their lives every day, seeing them continue to do their job, because that is her job. It's not just a thing she does for fun anymore.
Right.
And
for the rest of the world to see that. Yeah, like for the world to see, like, you're not washed up when you become a mom. Like you are just as competitive. You can be just as strong, just as athletic, just as like fired up athlete. And you can be a nurturing mother. Like these are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. And who is the marathon runner that just qualified? She was training while she was pregnant, had the baby, and now qualified at a world championship to go to the Olympics. Like, that's amazing. She never stopped. She modified, she changed things. Maybe it took a little bit longer than she planned, but she just pivoted and continued on. It's doable. It's possible. She's safe. Baby's safe.
I know. And isn't that the story of like just being an athlete is like you progress, you pause, you pivot, you reset, whether it's pregnancy or some other like life variable or body variable, like you get really good at being adaptable. And we just have to be able to look at, becoming pregnant or navigating postpartum in the same ways. It's like, maybe it's different, but it's not over. And we are really adaptable creatures. That is what makes you a good athlete, is when you learn to be adaptable.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when tearing your ACL was like the end of the world. Like, oh my God, she's done. Like, whoa, we're just going to rehab this. She'll be back. But it was like this big deal. Like, oh, if you tore your ACL out, it's career ending. Right. And I mean, I played with rugby. Women were coming back and playing a full contact sport after multiple knee surgeries. Right. Because it just became normal practice. It's a normal recovery process. It's not like, whoa, I don't know what to do. So I think it's really important for more people to educate themselves around the postpartum space and around the pelvic floor, and have physical therapists that are specialists in that, so that we have these resources so that we can come back.
Man, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and like you're an incredible resource. You're so proactive. And I appreciate the voice and the knowledge that you bring, not just to your department, but to your community, the greater communities as a whole. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Couldn't have done it without your help.
Well, happy to be a small part of it. Thank you for sharing your story and your time with us. And if people want to find you and learn a little bit more about you and some of the services that you offer kind of across the board, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at RYCAR. RYY_CAR. My married name is Ryan Reynolds, so you could type that in as well, and hopefully the handsome man doesn't pop up. But mostly just Instagram is where I'm the most active. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.